Oh, my beloved friends, I am so very happy to welcome you today. I'm just a happy person. Can you tell? I'm just a happy. It reminds me of the dog. I'm just a happy dog. I'm a happy, happy dog. You seen that video? That's how I feel today. I'm just a happy dog. I'm happy. I'm just in a really goofy mood in my inner vision. Tomorrow we're having Susan with us as our guest, and she fosters guinea pigs. And one of her little guineas died this last week, and she sent me a picture of the little guinea while it was still living, and it was just such a precious little thing. I'm in my inner vision, in my psychic vision, I'm seeing this little flying pig in cartoon form, this little precious little guinea pig with its little face. And I'm seeing it all over the place floating around and strewing blessings. It's like strewing this fairy dust. It's just been delightful fun. So I'm in this just happy, goofy mood today, whew, which is just perfect for my dear friend Lori Leyden. I just so much love Lori Leyden. She's been my friend for a long time. And every time I get Lori's emails about what she's up to, I am so astonished and amazed, and my heart beats wildly, and I cry tears. And the latest thing is that some of Lori's Rwanda kids have been on this incredible peace mission. You want to tell us about that, Lori?
Oh, patience is so important on our spiritual journey, is it not?
Oh, yes.
And as you know, I've been working in traumatized communities around the world for the last 15 years, and I began in my work in Rwanda, which has changed my life. And I've actually coincided with you and I meeting in 2008. And so I have been working in Rwanda since 2007, and we developed Project Light, and Light stands for Heart-Centered Leadership Inspires Global Healing and Transformation. And my notion was that if traumatized young people around the world could learn how to heal their trauma, could learn economic sustainability skills and become heart-centered leaders, that they could work, heal, and lead us into a peaceful future. And, over the years, we've done some amazing things with grassroots donations and a project that you and I will talk about, the rosaries. Ah, yes. But our orphanage at the top of Mount Jali, in a remote location that was most hit by the genocide in 1994, is a high school orphanage that I've continued to support along with many people like yourself around the world. And I always promised them that they would be in touch with young people around the world to solve the world's problems. And at the time, and because this is a beautiful healing summit, we can talk about, like, okay, you get the big push, you get the message, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And then you're like, seriously? And how is that going to happen? And I'm happy to say that 15 years later, last Wednesday, I connected my young people in Rwanda with students in Kiev who are literally studying in bomb shelters, and Ukrainian refugee students who are living now in a building in Auschwitz, which my dear friend Nina Meyerhoff has converted for these young people, along with Polish students who are in classes with them, and United States kids, to witness my young people who bring such a depth of understanding about how war decimates a country for generations, and having them be able to bring messages of hope to young people who are being traumatized as we speak, is just beyond imagination. Because young people, who are they going to listen to? Other young people who understand what's happening. So yes, I'm still recovering and from my emotional joy of watching this. The replay is, I'll send you the link to the replay, which is on my Facebook
I
page.
watched it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's
It is
just,
so compelling.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just amazing. And that's just one of the things, like I would say to people on your healing journey. I know that the people who are in your summit right now are know that they are have a divine connection, know that they are here for a divine purpose. And if my kids in Rwanda can understand that God saved them for a reason, then who the hell are we not to believe that we have a reason and a purpose too?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Whew. So, your 5 stages of embodied grace came out of years and years and years of developing this healing process for people in the most horrific trauma that I can't even imagine the trauma of the people that you have been working with. So it's been the orphan survivors of Rwanda, where I remember when you told the story about the birthdays. You want to tell us that story about the birthdays on your first visit? Yeah.
Yeah. So I came prepared with lots of fun exercises, and so we would pray and sing and do trauma healing work. But I also wanted to connect with each of these young people, and so we were working with 100 orphan head of households. These are young people who were 6 to 8 years old at the time of the genocide, and they were given 2 to 6 other children to raise with no visible means of support, nothing. And here it was 13 years later. They had never spoken about the genocide. They had still struggled there. They had given up their own education to care for their younger siblings. And my colleague Connie and I thought, oh, well, this would be a great warm-up exercise. We're going to celebrate every child. And so of the 100 orphan head of households, we formed this big circle, and we said, okay, we're going to announce the month of your birth, and anybody who's born in the month of January, you get into the center of the circle, and we're going to sing happy birthday, and we're going to celebrate you. And then you're going to go back into the circle, and we're going to bring February and on through the months. So we called out January, and no one got into the circle. So we're like, okay, we called out February. No one got into the circle. Now, us Americans, non-genocide people, we weren't getting it until we got to about May. And I realized these kids don't know their birthday because their parents have been murdered. It's only 12 minutes in, Kimberly, I'm already crying.
Perfect. Right on schedule.
And so, and I remember saying, okay, you can all have my birthday. And we ended up having a big celebration for an April birthday. And anybody who didn't remember their birthdays now has an April birthday. But you can't imagine, we just living in this country, we just can't imagine things that we take for granted that are so. Who could have imagined that I was going to traumatize them by talking about birthdays? But now they have so much hope. They have so much resilience because they've learned how to regulate their physiology, which we'll talk about, which prayer does a beautiful job of, as well as the other things that we'll talk about. But they inspire me every day. And then we've been able to make a documentary, which came out in 2014, and that's on our website, createglobalhealing.org, which you can watch for free, and you too can be inspired. And so it's every day, just following your heart every day, even when it looks when the messages seem completely impossible. It's all about that trust and surrender. And you yourself know, because you've been at this, as I know, for quite some time. And
Yeah.
I think that's really where the 5 stages of embodied grace have been so helpful to me at this part of the journey. It's like, I know you and I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on our spiritual and personal healing. We have tried every method, I like to say, uh, known to man, woman, extraterrestrial, sentient beings, like whatever it is, we signed up for it. We tried it. But when I started my spiritual journey, and I have to say this was as a result of experiencing childhood trauma, there was no map. I didn't know. I was looking for a map. I took every workshop looking for that map. And luckily, a couple of years ago, I sat in deep meditation and asked for this map. And that's how the 5 stages came through. And, it begins with my belief that I believe we're all here for 2 purposes. The first purpose is to heal the wound of separation from the divine. And then as we do that healing work and heal our trauma, we find the seeds of our destiny in that healing so that we can step into our own personal expression of our divine destiny. And I know that's true, and I have, that's been my work for the last 30 years. Interestingly, so the 5 stages, as we understand that, and I remember when I first introduced them, and I thought, well, nobody's really going to want to know that they're in the first stage, which is separation, right? Because we all kind of like to think we're in the advanced stages. Just saying. And but that separation from the divine is the first stage. We're born into it. We experience small traumas and and big traumas in our lives, which tend to reinforce the fact that we're separate from the divine, we're alone. That separation phase is really feeling into our victimhood and that sense of martyr and self-pity, feeling disconnected, feeling, for many, I bet on your summit, feeling there's something wrong with us, there's something different, we don't fit in, we don't belong. But there's that kind of yearning that there's something else. But we're just blocked. We're in fear. We're experiencing abandonment, betrayal, rejection. All of these negative things are just evidence to us through the lens of separation that, in fact, we're not divine, that we are alone. And that's a hard stage to get out of, except that our current, so I have this quote now. Much of what passes for spiritual growth is what I call spiritual entertainment that leads to a lot of spiritual bypass, which means people just want to speak about positive things. And then they don't really do the deep work to heal what's underneath that, those core issues. So when the pain of our sense of separation gets so great, we begin to get into what I call the stage of stirring. Stirring is this sense that I'm going to find something outside of myself that is going to be the answer. And we're still in a place of trying to heal ourselves from a place of brokenness, which is why we have all of we keep signing up for the next thing and the next thing. And we can make some humor about current internet marketing purposes, but okay, you can buy enlightenment for $99, and if you don't get it for $99, you can get it for $2,000, and if you can't get it for $2,000, you can sign up for the $10,000 package. But really, it's an internal process, and I'm here to tell people that it's time to heal from our wholeness, not from our brokenness, because otherwise, when something goes wrong, we just keep going back into the brokenness well, I must be broken. And so we spend most of our time in stirring. There's always another workshop, or like you and I, there's always something else to learn before we launch our new product or our new workshop or our new anything. but we're not really getting any traction. And we're still mired in this sense of self-pity and martyr. But yet there's now a bit of a curiosity and a little bit of hopefulness coming in. But we just get stuck in that stage. And then the fulcrum, the third stage, is surrender. And just even now, as you're listening to this, everyone on the call, did you feel a little contraction when I said the word surrender? Because people think surrender means giving up. But in the spiritual sense, it's really about giving into the truth of who we truly are, which is divine beings. And we have forgotten that we are divine beings. So in that sense of surrender, we begin to start to experience that if we are fully present in our thought, in our hearts, we're able to manage whatever comes our way. But getting into surrender and staying there is really, and I want to ask your input on all of this, obviously, Kimberly, because you follow this from your own sense. But in that place of surrender, there's more happiness, there's more calmness, there's more of a sense of humility, resiliency. There's this sense of connectedness. We begin to start to see the gifts and the miracles that the divine really is supporting us. It's like the blinders come off. And then it's about staying in that sense of surrender long enough to move to the next stage, which is stillness. And in that place of stillness, and stillness can be active or passive. It can be soulful. It can be spirited. But it's that sense that whatever I need in the moment will come to me. That connection, whatever resource I need will be present to me. And this is what I learned in Rwanda. And there's many stories we can tell about how that came to me in Rwanda after literally doing all the work I could to transcend my ego and any contraction, because I didn't know what I was going to be presented with. And certainly, could I be present to a person who had murdered 100 people? Could I be present to a widow whose family had been murdered in front of her, and she was living with AIDS because of being raped and tortured and the genocide? Could I sit with these orphan head of households and bring them a sense of hope and healing? And I experienced the infinity circuit truly in those times in Rwanda, where I thought there was a giver and I thought there was a receiver. But really, when we meet in that sweet spot in the middle, there's only love, and we're all transformed. And I realized in that moment that I was, simply part of an experience of love. And what I received was so much more powerful than had I continued to take on this notion that I was going there to give something or, whatever. Now, the final stage is synergy, which I think is an emerging stage in the world. And it's both internal synergy and external synergy. So when we've sat in stillness enough, things begin to flow. We synergize with all parts of our inner selves. We're able to feel that flow and communication with all parts of ourselves. And then there's the ability to seek outside collaboration for synergies. And that's it needs a lot of work in our world right now, because we live kind of in a more of a transactional world versus a collaborative one. But we are definitely moving into those places of synergy, just like what you and I are doing right now. We never have to discuss anything that we do ahead of time, because we have that synergy with each other that has been nurtured over the time that we've known each other, and we just go right into that infinity circuit. But I've been talking way too much. is this making sense? What do you have to share about the 5 stages and how they fit into your philosophy?
Oh, we are so connected in our hearts. I haven't called it quite this. I've had different words to describe it, but this has truly been my journey and this has been my experience as well. And as we were just discussing before we let everybody in, when we had those few private moments in the beginning with Manette, when we were actually doing a little planning for what we were going to do today, where I was sharing about what an incredible summit this has been, what an incredible experience. Yeah, Dr. Valerie says, "Yep, same here, different words but similar stages." Yeah, so that when I can surrender, thinking I know anything, thinking I'm the doer, when I can let go of that part of myself and surrender into allowing the infinite, amazing being that I am to coexist and come forward, that's when the true miracles happen. And that stillness, stillness is kind of a funny word because it's not what I would think of as being still. I think of stillness as that's not it. It's a very active state, as you just described, and it does lead into the state of flow. We've heard a lot about the state of flow. We've heard a lot about the fields of creativity, about quantum creation or quantum healing or quantum thought, and these beautiful fields of manifestation. And that's where you are from that place of stillness. You are accessing all of creation. The world is your oyster, as some people say, and I happen to like oysters, so I like that one. But it is so much that way. When the angels came and invited me to host this summit, I instantly said yes. I instantly started following the directions that were coming in because I was in that state of surrender. I was in that place of stillness where I was receiving. And in there, that synergy could happen both inside me and also with all of our speakers. Look at how many incredible speakers. We have 30 speakers here. You can't even imagine what a job of coordination this has been, but it's all been really lovely. And it just has all showed up. Like we got Manette and Catherine. Haven't they been a wonderful blessing? Manette and Catherine came through Jana Marie, who was helping me strategize and plan. And so everything we've needed has appeared before or in the moment of need, which is just an incredibly beautiful experience. So we can do it creatively and enjoy, or we can do it during trauma and moments of need. This is available for all states of our life. Valerie's got her hand up. Yes, Valerie, please.
So I don't really have a question. Thank you, Kimberly, for booking Lori. Thank you, Lori, for saying yes. Just from a place of just sharing. So I love the title. I love talking about grace. And I think of grace as the state of my higher self loving me, even when the lower self of me doesn't think I deserve it. And so that's one thought. I love that idea that it's still all me. And in your stages, so I think I've been feeling a little churn lately. So Kimberly, I know that you were talking about the yes that you said when you were first asked. And then after that, I imagine there were some times when you were like, what the hell did I say yes to that for? And that like there have been some times when I'm like, I know where I'm headed and I've said yes to is this monumental relocation. And this weekend, I just got into this your churn example, Lori, where I was kind of going, okay, I'm not ready for this. What more do I have to do to be able to be the container that holds the me that's capable of doing this? And it's funny that I got into this space of there's a little impatience, like, why isn't it already done? Like I want it all yesterday. And I know that's the immaturity of this idea that it already is mine. So that's the the immaturity of the wounded child who never thought she was enough and still gets activated in certain situations. So there's that going on. And then the impatience around this concept in me around unfinished versus finished business. Is that it? Is that? Yeah, it's something to do with conditioning around your most God-like self. You know, God created the world and then rested on the seventh day. So if you've been working at this for 10 years, you must be doing it wrong. There's something in me that is around that idea of, come on, girlfriend, get this stuff done. Like, what's your problem with taking so long? Why haven't you done it? So I just wanted to throw that out there into the space along with these 5 stages, because to me, there's an opening there, and I'd love to hear, Lori, for your perspective on it. Thank you.
And thank you for your beautiful reflections. And oh, there's so much more. So I'm going to show you this slide. Oh, but that's the wrong one.
Not that one.
I know. How about that one?
There we go. That's the one.
Yes, thank you. So this just depicts the stages, right, that we go through. And of course, we need a tool to get us from one stage to the next, which is the grace process, which I will talk a little bit more about later. But what happens here, what you're describing, Valerie, Dr. Valerie, is stirring. And so, but let's keep in mind, for example, I believe that I can be in a state of stillness when I'm doing my session work with individuals and groups. I guarantee I am full-fledged in stillness stage, right? But if I learn something new, or if there's another, if my work takes another level or another form, I may go back into a state of a bit of stirring and a bit of separation, if that makes any sense. So maybe I still have stirring in relationships, or maybe I still have stirring with finances. That's a whole month-long summit right there. But I can depend on the stillness that I can achieve in the other areas of my life, and bring that and remind myself, yes, this is possible in this stage, right? So I want you to think about, Dr. Valerie, first of all, I tell people, never ask why in your spiritual search, because it will forever keep you in stage 1 and 2. And so as soon as we have, why is it taking so long? That's a judgment. That's going to lock me into separation and or stirring. And so when I notice those judgments, as part of the grace process, we look at what are our judgments that we have about the healing that we're seeking, and what is the unforgiveness that may still be there. And the judgments and the unforgiveness can be about ourselves, other people, the circumstance we find ourselves in, and or the divine. And people are much reluctant to identify that they're mad at the divine. But if you're asking why, you're mad at the divine. And so, and I say this with humor and as much grace as possible, because I've been in that loop hundreds of thousands of times in my life. But the beauty is to notice where are the contractions, because that's where the work is needed. And as Kimberly knows, I use emotional freedom techniques to release the somatic energy of those judgments and unforgiveness. Because you really can't have judgments and unforgiveness and receive truly what it is that you're wanting to receive. Because it's like saying, it's like when I go to, I also work in Australia with Aboriginal and refugee communities. I work in post-school shooting environments. You cannot, what I did, I remember the day in Rwanda when I was working with 50 women who were leaders of their villages because there were no more men to be chiefs of the village, and they were all living with AIDS. And I asked them, what did they want more than their grief and trauma? And and this was a guided thing, and I was like, you can't be asking me to ask them this question. It's ridiculous. But they loved it because it gave them, they're like, we want peace in our hearts and peace in our country. I was like, whoa. Right? So you can't have both. If this is making sense to people. And this is, again, what keeps us going back and forth through the stages that I just mentioned. And so the invitation now is, how do I choose surrender with as much humor and as much trust and faith? Now, this is not, this is substantive. This is not just about God's going to take care of everything. No. I am responsible for my inner state, and I am responsible for meeting the divine in the field of the divine with my open and surrendered heart. That's when the flow, that's when grace unfolds. And grace, I define as, that ordinary moments become extraordinary, and extraordinary moments become ordinary, where we feel a sense of connectedness and wholeness and oneness, and a sense of, yes, this is right, even if I don't have all the answers. Again, another long-winded answer there, but I'm hoping that made sense.
How was that, Dr. Valerie? Does that
Oh yeah, it was great perspective. Thank you. And if no one else has another question, I just wonder if you could put your visual up again.
Yes.
And could you talk to the arc? So I'm very clear on how life isn't linear, but I like this. It looks like a smile, but I wonder if there's something more to be gained by this arc that you have in the visual.
I think it's really describing the fulcrum here, the surrender part, that this is the path, that once we get to surrender, I think it's easier to recognize when we're in stirring and separation, and easier to move forward. It's not hierarchical, and as you said, it's not linear, because I will talk about the stages and then the states. So as I mentioned, I'm pretty much in stillness when I'm doing my work, but I can achieve moments of separation, like when I look at the stock market last Friday, or I can be pulled into, something I don't know about. Let me start looking at that. But I'm really supposed to be doing something else. So I use my stirring to avoid, right? And move out of alignment to avoid where I need to go next. So I can't say anything more about the graphic, except to say that the grace process, which is another formula that I downloaded in meditation, is what I use to get from one stage to the next. We're going to be doing a free 5-day embodied grace project at the beginning of November. So anybody who's interested can, actually, you can go to my website, LoriLeyden.com. If you sign up for the newsletter, you will get the ebook 5 Stages of Embodied Grace for free. And we'll keep you apprised of how you can learn more about the stages, and how you can learn about the grace process, which simply is a method for transcending ego and living in our hearts, so that we can be fully present and access what we need in the moment.
Oh, beautiful. Jana Marie has her hand up. Hey, Jana Marie.
Good morning. Thank you. That was so beautiful. Yeah, I'm just listening to, I mean, so resonating with the time it takes between each thing, and that you've made this nice little smile out of it. But yeah, my stirring was like 20 years of, stirring and searching and stirring and searching. That was like a 20-year process of, just trying to figure it out. And then when I joined the angel ministry, in that period of time, what I was learning there is I had reached a point where I called Kimberly one time and I said, I am freaking sick of surrender. Like, how do you even surrender? Because I'm so over this. Like, how do you do this? And so she did an angel attunement, with me, and that cleared out, where that was. And then I started moving into the next section, which was the flow, right? So between even surrender and synergy, there's been time, but now I'm going to be 65 tomorrow. And it's like, geez, I'm finally in the freaking flow. I mean, it's a lifetime journey, and I think back, well, why didn't I know this at 35? Well, I wasn't supposed to. It's all come at exactly the time it's supposed to. And I'm here to give back at the time I have enough wisdom and experience. I mean, I think you have to go through all that before you can even help serve others.
Mm-hmm.
I can love and I can serve and I can be compassionate and kind, but until you can really empathize, with that journey and what it takes to get through all of that. And so, thank you for all that you're doing for the world and the global healing, and everything's beautiful, really beautiful. Bless you.
Thank you so much. And for all of us to know, truly, it's not even about, again, asking the secret why in there. It's not why it took 20 years. And it's not, it's the substance of the journey. And, we all, okay, when I first started studying with my spiritual teacher 40 years ago, I thought, oh, I totally get what victim means. I totally get what martyr means. I totally get what self-pity means. And then 10 years later, I was like, ooh. And then 20 years later, ooh, 30. And now it's 40 years later, and I'm still in awe, and I'm still expanding into the experience. And, heard the phrase, it's not the destination, it's the journey.
Blah, 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 blah.
Right. And this is why I have a whole thing now about it's time to stop our spiritual practices now. Because if you are doing your gratitude journal and you're talking to the angels in the morning and you did your meditation and you get up off the yoga mat and you kick the cat or you yell at your spouse, your spiritual practices ain't working. And so it's really about embodiment. It's not about quoting Rumi or and all that stuff is great, but it's about living it. And through these stages, I know my internal state, and I can't really stay too long in those early states because they're too too contracting. And I'm not used to my body physiology wants peace. And that's not to say, as Kimberly knows, in 2021, boy, I took a hit that it was really hard for me. It was like a joke almost, but I was so good at struggling between separation and stirring. And I thought, but the one thing that was screwing me up was why. Because there's the why of my ego, which is why the heck is this happening? And then there's the why of my divinity, which is the wonder, the wonder. But until we can get into the wonder why, don't ask it. It's not going to help. So it's like, it's just being in the gratitude, love, joy, and wonder that right here now, in the present moment, everything I need is right here. There's no past, there's no future. It's the richness of the love that's possible in this moment because I am in surrender and or stillness or in flow.
Yeah. May I quote you on what you said was so beautiful. You said the ordinary becomes extraordinary. And then the ordinary becomes extraordinary, which then becomes ordinary, even though it's extraordinary. And when you find your place, I mean, I'm in that place where people say to me, you talk about the angels and all this stuff as if it's like really true. Like you talk about it like it's just an everyday thing for you. Like you just believe it. And I said, because I do. So, I finally reached a place where I don't care if somebody's rolling their eyes at me anymore. I mean, there was that whole period too, where I was afraid to speak up. But it's true. It's like the ordinary things. I mean, the extraordinary to me is now ordinary because I expect it. I expect all of this beautifulness and miracles all the time. I know it's true. And so when you get to that knowingness, that's the real miracle and the beautiful thing that happens in your heart and your soul when you just know it and then you live it, like you're saying.
That's a beautiful point, because I've been in a deep debate with myself and other people about the trauma of law of attraction and the way that it's taught. Yeah. And that's a whole nother, Kimberly and I will do a whole nother thing about that. But the way that some of these concepts are taught, they're very insubstantial, and it ends up making the person feel that there's something wrong with them. It actually exacerbates the wound of separation from the divine. And so I like to think, and if last year when I lost 9 people that I loved, and I had several traumatic experiences unfold, if one person said to me, you create your own reality, there was going to be violence somewhere in my world. And I say that because I know people are well-meaning and they're trying to fix it, but what I know to be true from all of the work that I've done on myself is there's 7.9 billion people on the planet. There are trillions of sentient beings and forces and energies and everything else that are all coming to bear on our reality. And so I believe that my resilience and my connectedness is about not necessarily creating my own reality, but how I respond to the reality that I am being presented with. Mm-hmm. And if I waste my time trying to figure out, yes, take responsibility for my actions and my, what I did, but it's about how do I respond? And interestingly, don't try this at home, but of course I launched my 5 stages of embodied grace last year. And what do? I start experiencing separation for the first time in like 20 years. And I had to laugh, seriously? And then I thought, oh crap, how long is the stirring gonna last? And then how long is it? But when I really realized that this was a huge gift, even though it was painful, that I could really go immerse myself back into it and get myself out of it again, was the gift. I didn't judge myself because I was there. Well, I did a little bit. That was all part of the process.
Yeah. One of the things I'm teaching is convictions, and it seems to me it starts there. So you have your convictions, and if you always have them and you know what they are, then you can always go to them. So you don't have to react to anything. You respond by the knowingness you already have of what you believe. So when something bad happens, you can say to yourself, well, I know what is true. I know what's true about this. Mm-hmm. And then you're not reacting. You're just sitting with it, and you know what you believe to be true. So you're okay. And everyone else around you is in chaos.
So beautiful. And thank you for that invitation, because I think also in that moment, I only ask, what do I know to be true about myself? Mm-hmm. Because I also have to be in the wonder of the mystery of not knowing. So I have to trust being in the mystery of not knowing, which means I have to have that kind of humility. But the one thing I can return to is my divine nature. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how my nuance.
Yeah, that's what I would call my divine connection or my divine knowingness is that's I know that to be true. And so then I can be there. But again, it's taken forever to get here. To get
No
here.
judgment. No judgment. You're here. You're here. That's
I'm
all
here.
that matters. That's
I'm here.
all that matters.
Gonna
And
live to be 130. So I'm only half done. I have a lot more to do.
beautiful. Thank you.
So Lori, you have an experience for us. You have a process for us.
Well, yes, it's more of an invitation.
An invitation, okay.
Yes. And so I would just invite you all now, if you have a sip of water there, I'd ask you to take a sip of water. And I'd just like to invite you to close your eyes and do what I know you know to do to move into that quiet space inside. And if it feels right to place your hands on your heart, I invite you to do that now. And as you bring that breath all the way to the belly, exhaling any tension you may be holding, taking a moment to erase the blackboard of your mind, knowing that this is your time now. And placing your consciousness in your heart, knowing that your heart will know just what to do. And with your consciousness in your heart, imagine inviting in the energy of your soul to the left of you. That sacred feminine energy that knows the journey and knows how to receive. And calling in the energy of your spirit to the right of you. That sacred masculine energy that wills and inspires us forward from a place of love. And when soul and spirit are in divine union, we can integrate to our higher selves. Imagine calling in the energy of your higher self just above you. That part of you that is directly connected to the divine. That part of you that wants the most elegant journey. And when we remember these sacred aspects of ourselves, we can remember that we're not alone. But we have all the resources we need on this healing journey. Imagine being able to step into this pyramid of grace that's bounded by your higher self, your soul, and your spirit. Dropping just a little more deeply into the stillness in your heart. Imagining an infinity circuit that connects your heart with the divine one heart, or whatever you refer to as source. Knowing that when we meet the divine in the field of the divine, in the center of that infinity circuit, there's only love and we're all transformed. I'm taking a moment from this place now to gently touch into an experience of separation that you may have had recently or in the distant past. Something that occurred that triggered feelings of aloneness, feelings of separation. And as you allow yourself to touch into this energy, just notice what you notice in your body. Notice any contraction. Setting an intention to recognize that physical sensation should it arise again. Blessing that sensation as an indication to remember the truth of who you really are. That there was a temporary moment when you forgot your divinity. And this physical feeling in your body is simply an invitation to reconnect. And from this place, with a sense of wondering what it would feel like to move out of separation and into stirring. Again, taking a moment to touch into a recent or distant memory when you were in stirring mode. Something that kept you asking why. Something that kept you moving away from what you truly intended, distracting you. Something that triggered you back into those feelings of martyr or self-pity or victim mode. Noticing how that feels in your body. Those feelings of contraction with the unsafety of not knowing, of the efforting to know that which is unknowable. And with a sense of humor, just noticing what the energy of stirring feels like. So that you can recognize it and recognize the invitation to choose what state you truly want to be in. Again, from a place of wonder, being in wonder of what surrender feels like in your body. That sweet sense of trusting and faith that allows you to simply lean into the divine, leaning into the hints and clues of your own divinity, leaning into the wonder that whatever the divine has in store for you is far more miraculous than what our ego may want. Our ego that simply wants to define something and control it. Imagining that sweet sense of surrender in a memory. Perhaps it came through prayer. Perhaps it came from an extraordinary moment. Perhaps it came from an ordinary moment. Perhaps it came simply from that sweet moment between wakefulness and surrendering into sleep. Taking a moment to surrender into this beautiful angel healing energy field we are creating in this moment. Touching into what surrender feels like in your body. And in this place of surrender, opening to the inkling of the miracle of stillness. Touching into a moment, a stretch of time, where you are one with all that is, where whatever you need in the moment is there. Whether you are actively engaged with a loved one, with work, with nature, whatever you're actively engaged in, that whatever emerges is from that place of stillness. Just feeling into how good that feels in your body. Perhaps even sensing as we move through these stages, how much more exciting it is to look toward the next stage with a sense of being in the mystery of the unknown. And from this place, allowing the energy of synergy to be present. An internal energy where you are at peace with all your parts, where all of the parts of you are operating in oneness, and where it's possible to come together in this group experience. To feel that sense of inner and outer flow. And from this place, simply asking yourself for some wisdom from your heart. What is it that your heart wants you to know about these stages in this moment? And just listening for the answer. And taking a moment now to take a few more healing breaths. And just gently, when you feel ready, opening your eyes, and feel free to pop in to the chat what your heart wisdom might have been.
Lori, that was just so fabulous.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Oh. Mm. I love going within, and I love these adventures that we take together.
Right.
Beautiful. I'm starting to see our messages popping into the chat, and that is so beautiful.
Trust that our divinity is unconditional.
Yeah.
If we could just remember that every day, in every moment. And even when we forget, to have a sense of humor. And of course, my divinity is unconditional. I must have gotten into my own way.
Yeah.
And yes, dear Anne, I just messaged you, darling. So good to see you. You're so close, and yet you're so far away.
Oh,
I know Anne from Australia, and I'm happy to announce that I will be returning to Australia finally next May. And we'll be doing some retreats there and lots of good things.
So any other questions that you want for Lori, or sharing about that amazing experience and your message? You can raise your hand, or you can just unmute and speak up.
I have a direct message that came in from Monica. I hope it's okay to ask the question to everyone, Monica. I think it's Monica. And she says, could I explain to her what surrender is? And I think I just heard the best description ever is when Lori said, surrender. I wrote it down like in capital letters. It's not giving up, but giving in to the truth. Did I get that right, Lori?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And like you just said, choosing humor and open heart and curiosity. Surrender is not giving up. And that's what it's so hard. It's like forgiveness. You think you're letting somebody off the hook. So if I surrender to this, they're getting off the hook, and we sit in that place, and it's not that at all. But until you understand that, the depth of what that really means, you just can't get there until you actually get that part of it. So I think surrender and forgiveness are in the same zone,
Totally.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I think of surrender as transcending my ego. And many of you have heard of the acronym EGO stands for edging God out. And so it's like when I ask the question, why, I'm really saying that the divine doesn't know what they're doing. And I somehow must know better because I have a plan.
That's not working.
And without that sense of humor, we're all sunk.
Right.
Thank you. I think I will have to experience it for myself, and then I will understand. But thank you very much. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other sharing or questions? So Lori was telling us that she is offering a free 5-day grace process program in November that will be amazing. And the way to get access to that, along with her gift, which is the ebook of the 5 stages of embodied grace, further explaining what she's been talking about today, is by going to her website, LoriLeyden.com. We have that on our speaker page too. And I think it's in our chat somewhere, LoriLeyden.com, Leyden. There we go. Beautiful, Manette. Thank you. And that amazing documentary that Lori mentioned in the beginning is at createglobalhealing.org. And there was one other thing. There is the video for the World Peace Day that just happened the other day. And I'll put that in an email later today, or can you just tell us what that was, Lori? What's that?
It's on my Facebook page. It's a long kind of but I can grab it right now. But this is basically a
Worth
video
watching. Yeah.
of my Project Light kids in Rwanda speaking with Ukrainian students in Kiev and Ukrainian refugee and Polish refugee students, all talking about peace building activities. I just threw it into the chat here. But it's been 15 years in the making for our kids to speak with other young people going through trauma with messages of hope and resiliency.
That had
I
to
don't
just make
can
you sob and just feel such love and gratitude in your heart.
excuse me,
Yes.
Kimberly. Hello, ladies. I actually have been through the grace process with Laurie. I started off by doing the 5-day free downloads with her, and that took me to the full grace process. I recommend it to everybody, and it has changed the way that I feel inside, and it's just an automatic feeling. It's not something that the reactions and things like that you have on a day-to-day basis change, and you look at alternatives and the way you behave, and yeah, it's changed my life, I think. So thank you, Laurie, for that, and I look forward to seeing you next year.
Yes, it makes my heart sing when we can give this gift of peace to as many people around the world as possible. We can create global healing in our lifetime, but every one of us is integral, and every person who has that is contributing to world peace. And so we are the most important things in our lives. And so I'm so grateful.
Oh, thank you much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Laurie, do you have a message of hope or love or blessing for us as we close out today?
Kimberly, honestly, just feeling into the palpable beauty of this space is just, this is what it takes. This is what we're about. It's about how many lessons of love, how many experiences of love can we have in a moment. I watched Goodbye, Mr. Chips over the weekend, for those of you who may be old enough to have seen it. And Petula Clark sings a song, have I filled the world with love? That's the purpose of life. And so when you convene these kinds of special moments, that's the meaning of life. And I thank everyone for participating and being part of this. We can't do it without you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Laurie. I couldn't do this without you.
And we have so much fun in the process.
Yeah. Okay, then. With that, I love you all. And thank you so much for being with us today. See you again tomorrow.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad you could be with us.